I never thought it would come to this. Honestly, I thought I knew her, knew everything about her. We had plans, dreams, a wedding date set for next month. It was supposed to be perfect. But life has a way of kicking you right in the stomach when you're least expecting it. The first sign should have been the little things. She started working late more often, claiming it was some big project at her job. I'd come home from work and she'd be glued to her phone, hiding the screen whenever I walked into the room. She'd brush it off with a smile, say she was just catching up with friends or replying to her boss. That should set off alarm bells, but I was too blinded by love, by the dream we were building to see it. Then 3 days before I left town for a conference, I noticed her phone was missing from the kitchen counter. I asked her where it was and she shrugged. I must left it in the bedroom, she said, but her voice was shaky, like she was hiding something. I didn't press her. I was distracted running through my presentation notes, trying to stay focused on ahead. I left early the next morning, heart heavy but telling myself I was overthinking. I told her I loved her, kissed her goodbye, and headed out to the airport. It never crossed my mind that I wouldn't see her for a week. While I was gone, I kept busy, but I couldn't shake this nagging feeling. Every hour I'd check my phone, hopping for a text, a sign that everything was fine, but there was nothing. No messages, no calls, just silence. Then, yesterday, I got a message from her boss. I didn't recognize the number at first, but when I looked closer, I saw the name. A guy I'd never met, but I'd seen him at her office a few times, tall, confident, with a grin that seemed too cocky for his own good. The message was simple. You're not going to believe what I just found out. Let's talk. My stomach dropped. I thought maybe she'd been caught up in a work scandal or there was some mix-up. Instead, when I called her, her voice was tight, tense. She kept saying she was tired, that she'd call me later. But something told me this wasn't good. Then I saw it. A photo from her boss's phone, her half-naked in a hotel room. Her hair was messy, her cheeks flushed, her lips parted like she was caught mid-sentence. The caption, "The real us missed you, babe. I don't need to tell you how that felt. That sick, cold rush that drains your lungs like the air been punched out of you." I stared at that picture for what felt like forever. Every detail burned into my mind. The silver ring on her finger, the way her eyes looked half-lidded like she was trying to hide her shame. It hit me then I never really knew her. Not the way I thought I did. That woman was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I wanted to scream, to punch the wall, but all I could do was sit there, palms sweaty, trembling with rage and betrayal. How long had this been going on? How many lies did I believe? I remember the feeling of the cold sweat on my palms, the pounding of my heart like a bass drum in my chest. I called her back, voice low and steady, but her words were slippery. "It's not what it looks," she said, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake, just one night, please, I swear," I cut her off. "A mistake? You think I'm stupid? Did you tell me you loved me while you were lying in that bed with him?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen, I don't know why I did it." That's when I realized this wasn't about some stupid mistake. It was about betrayal, something I couldn't forgive. Not easily, not without a plan. I hung up, my stomach twisting. I needed to think. I needed to decide what to do. But I already knew one thing: I wouldn't let this slide. Not without consequences, not without something in return. I looked around my apartment, now feeling like a stranger. The smell of coffee still lingered in the air, but it all felt empty, hollow. I knew she'd lied to me about everything, about who she was, about what mattered. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. This wasn't just about cheating. It was about trust, something I thought I had, but now I see I never truly did. If she could do this to me, what else was she hiding? I had to do something, something that would make her regret ever crossing that line. I already had a plan forming in my mind, one that would hit her where it hurts, one that would teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. Because if she thought she could lie, cheat, and get away scot-free, she was dead wrong. And honestly, I was done waiting. The game was on. When I hung up that night, the weight of everything hit me in full force. My stomach was clenched tight and my palms still felt slick with sweat. I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe right. I kept replaying that damn photo over and over in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The sight of her, vulnerable, caught in a lie so deep it felt like drowning. I knew I had to act fast, but I also had to be careful. This wasn't just about catching her in the act. It was about making her understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I started thinking about how to turn this around, how to make her feel everything I was feeling now: betrayed, humiliated, furious. The first step was gathering evidence. I didn't want her to deny later that I'd known the truth all along. I wanted her to see I'd been watching, waiting, so I started digging. I went through her emails, her social media accounts, even her phone when she wasn't around. It was easy enough. She'd always been careless about hiding things before, and with her now distracted and emotional, she slipped up more often. What I found was worse than I expected. Flirty messages with her boss, late-night emails about secret meetings, and even some texts where she'd hinted she was unhappy, that she felt trapped. She'd been hiding this for months, probably longer. The worst part: how effortlessly she'd lied to my face, how easily she'd gone from loving me to being with him. It was a slap in the face I'd never seen coming. But I wasn't just going to confront her then and there. No, I needed a plan. Something surgical, something that would leave her no room for denial or excuses. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand that I wasn't just some pushover who'd forgive and forget. I started with a little setup. I reserved a small, discreet hotel room downtown. Nothing fancy, just enough to give me some space, some privacy. I bought a small voice recorder and a hidden camera, just enough to gather irrefutable proof. The idea was simple. I'd catch her in the act, and once I had everything, I'd confront her face to face. I remember the night I set everything in motion. I felt like I was about to walk into a lion's den. My stomach was in knots, and my hands were trembling as I placed the camera in a strategic corner of the hotel room. I'd arranged for her to meet him there, under the guise of some last-minute work thing she'd told me about. The evening arrived quicker than I wanted. I watched from the hallway outside, heart pounding in my chest. I saw her walk in, looking nervous but trying to act confident. The door closed behind her and I slipped back to the car, waiting for what I knew would come next. Minutes felt like hours, but then I saw her figure through the window, coming out, hurried, her face flushed. I watched the footage later that night, her in that hotel, sitting close to him, whispering, touching his arm. She looked nervous but also exhilarated. She was lying to me, betraying everything we'd built. My fists clenched as I saw her lean in, kiss him softly, and then hurriedly leave. That footage, it was my insurance, my proof that she'd been lying about everything. Next came the confrontation. I wanted her to see that I knew, that I had all the pieces. I planned to do it in the daylight, somewhere neutral. I didn't want to give her the chance to spin her lies. I wanted her to realize that her deception had consequences. When I finally sat her down, face to face, her eyes looked like a cornered animal. She tried to deny it, of course, but I cut her off. "You see this?" I showed her the footage on my phone. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she had no words. "You've been lying to me for months, about everything." She stammered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was one night. Just once, please don't." I interrupted her again, voice cold. "You think that excuses anything? You've been sleeping with your boss, hiding it from me, while I was out of town. Do you even realize how much I trusted you?" Her face crumpled. She tried to grab my arm, tears in her eyes, but I pulled away. I felt a strange mixture of rage and disappointment, like my core was splitting open. I didn't want to feel this way, but I couldn't stop it. She'd broken something in me I didn't think was breakable. That night, I knew I couldn't keep going like this. The betrayal had changed everything: my trust, my love, maybe even my willingness to stay. I decided then and there I'd take back my power. I'd make her see what she lost, because if she thought she could cheat on me and walk away, she was dead wrong. I already had my plan in mind, and it wasn't just about revenge, it was about teaching her a lesson, about making her feel the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to look at herself in the mirror and realize what she'd thrown away. I had to get ready. The pieces were in place. All I needed now was the final move. And once I did it, there'd be no turning back. Would you like me to continue? The next morning I woke up with a pounding headache, but my mind was sharp. I'd spent the night planning every detail of what I was about to do. I knew I couldn't just confront her and expect her to beg for forgiveness. That was too easy and too predictable. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, to understand that I wasn't going to let her get away with it without consequences. I started by preparing a little package. Inside, there was the evidence, the photos, the videos, the texts. I printed out some of the most damning emails and made copies of the messages on her phone. I also set aside her wedding dress, the one we'd chosen together just a few weeks ago. I wasn't going to destroy it outright, but I wanted her to see I was serious. This wasn't just about cheating. It was about everything she'd lied about, everything she'd hidden. While she was out running errands that morning, I took my chance. I slipped into her closet and grabbed her phone. It was unlocked, thanks to her carelessness. I scrolled through her messages, her emails, everything. I needed to know if she'd left anything out, if there were other secrets I hadn't uncovered yet. As I read, my stomach twisted, more lies, more betrayals. The picture was clear, she'd been unfaithful for months. Then I carefully transferred all the evidence onto a flash drive, making sure it was hidden in a place I knew she'd never find. I also left a note on her pillow, just a simple message. You lied to me. You betrayed everything we had. When you get home, we're talking. And I mean talking, not begging. That evening, I sat in my car outside her apartment waiting. I knew she'd come home angry, maybe crying. I wanted her to see that I'd done my homework, that I was not the fool she thought I was. I watched her key turn in the lock, her face tired and worried. She stepped inside, and I followed a minute later. She looked surprised to see me sitting there. Her eyes darted, trying to gauge my mood. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. I held up the flash drive. "I found everything. All your secrets, your lies. I want to talk, but I'm not in the mood for games." She looked down, her hands trembling. "Please just listen. I was weak, just one mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head slowly. "That's the thing, I don't believe you anymore. You lied about everything, about your work, about us, about who you really are, and I'm done pretending I didn't see it." Her face crumpled. "It was a stupid mistake. I swear I love you. Don't do this." Her voice cracked and tears streamed down her cheeks. I stood up slowly, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "Love, that's gone. You broke it. You thought you could hide your lies forever, but I have all the proof now, and I've decided what comes next." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I took a step toward her. "I mean, I'm going to make sure you remember this moment forever. You're going to see how it feels to be betrayed, to have your lies exposed. You think you're the only one who's hurt. No, this is about fairness. You're going to wish you never crossed that line." She looked desperate, begging, trying to hold on to some part of me, but I wasn't having it. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of keys. "Here, your apartment key. You can stay or go, but I want you to know one thing. I'm done. Done with the lies, the secrets, the betrayal, and I'm not going to let you walk away like nothing happened." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She just stared at me as I handed her the keys. Then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there trembling. I felt my chest tighten, but I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd taken back a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. I knew she'd try to call, try to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. Not anymore. I'd already made up my mind. This was the end for us. A clean break, a hard reset. And honestly, it felt damn good. I drove off, leaving her behind, knowing I'd never look back. That day I realized something. Trusting someone is a choice. And sometimes that choice has to be taken away. Because if you don't stand up for yourself when it counts, you're just handing over your happiness on a silver platter. I learned that the hard way. But now I know next time I'll be the one calling the shots. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. As I drove away from her apartment that night, the city lights blurred through the windshield. My hands were stiff on the steering wheel and my stomach churned like I'd eaten something bad. I kept replaying that moment, handing her the keys, watching her face crumple, knowing I was finally taking control. But beneath that, an uneasy feeling crept in. Was this really the end, or just the beginning of something darker? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what I'd let happen. I'd always believed in honesty, in trust. But she'd shattered that, and now I had to decide what to do next. I knew I couldn't just go back to life as usual, pretending everything was fine. That wasn't me. I was angry, hurt, but I was also furious, ready to make her pay in a way that mattered. The thing about betrayal is it leaves scars, and those scars, I realized, could be used as weapons. I started planning my revenge, not in a childish way, but cold, calculated, precise. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences, that I was stronger than her lies. First step, I reached out to her boss. It took some digging, but I found his contact info through a mutual friend. I didn't want to be obvious, but I wanted to make sure he knew I was onto him. So I sent a simple message. We should talk. It's about your relationship with my wife. No details, just enough to pique his curiosity. I wanted him to know I wasn't just going to roll over. Next, I found out where she was staying, the hotel she'd been using as her side of the affair. I made a reservation, but not for a night, just enough to set a trap. I ordered some discreet equipment, another hidden camera, a microphone, the works. I wasn't planning to do anything illegal, but I wanted proof. Hard, undeniable proof that she was still lying, still hiding. While I was at it, I arranged a little surprise for her. I bought a plane ticket, just a quick trip to a nearby city. She'd think I was still trying to save what was left of us, but really I was going to be there, watching, waiting. I needed to see what she'd do if I wasn't around. Would she come back, or was she already planning her next betrayal? The night before her supposed meeting, I went to the hotel, set up the cameras, and hid in a nearby closet. I wanted to be a silent observer, a fly on the wall. My stomach was knotting again, heart pounding just thinking about what I was about to catch. I knew she'd come, she had to, because I'd made sure her boss knew I was watching. When she arrived, she looked different, more nervous, more reckless. Her makeup was smudged, her hair a mess. She slipped into the room and I saw her glance around as if checking for her exit. I pressed record, held my breath and watched her through the tiny lens. What I saw confirmed everything I'd suspected. She was nervous, maybe worried she'd get caught, yet she still kissed him, still touched him as if she'd forgotten I was even part of her world anymore. Her hands trembled and she kept glancing at the door, constantly, fearing someone might walk in. It was more than I expected, more than I'd hoped for. When she left, I stayed in the room, watching her through the footage, my mind racing. I now had everything I needed, more than enough to make her see what she'd lost. I wasn't just going to confront her anymore. I was going to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. The next morning, I waited until she was out of town, then I took the evidence and carefully removed the cameras. I wanted her to find out what I'd done, to realize that even in her secret world I was always watching. When she returned, I left the footage on her bed in plain sight, next to her abandoned wedding dress folded neatly as if mocking her. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. Her face when she saw the footage, the shock, the shame, that was enough. She would understand I'd been one step ahead all along, that I'd turned her own lies into her biggest nightmare. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd finally taken control, but the cost was high. Trust was broken, maybe beyond repair. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her keep deceiving me. Not anymore. The question now was, what was she going to do? Would she come back and try to fix things? Or was she already planning her next move? I had planted the seeds of doubt, of fear, and I was watching, waiting for her next move. Would you like me to continue? In the days that followed, silence hung heavily between us. I kept my distance, giving her space while secretly watching her every move. I knew she'd seen the footage by now, there was no way she could miss it. Her reaction, silence mostly. She avoided me, acting like I'd suddenly become a stranger. I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes, though. The guilt was eating her up, I was sure of that. But I wasn't about to wait her out forever. I needed to talk to her face to face, really get her to understand the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to feel just a fraction of what I'd gone through. I'd spent so much time planning and gathering proof. Now it was time to make her confront it. I arranged to meet her at a quiet coffee shop. Neutral ground. I figured if she was going to lie or deny, I'd be ready. My heart hammered as I watched her walk in, nervously clutching her purse. Her face was pale, her eyes darting around as if she was trying to spot an escape route. She saw me and hesitated, then sat down, her hands trembling on the table. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she started, voice cracking. I was stupid, I was weak, but I love you. I swear I want to fix this. I looked at her coldly, feeling the anger bubble up again. Fix it? You think a sorry and some tears can undo what you've done? You lied to me for months behind my back while I was out of town pretending everything was okay. Do you even realize how much you've hurt me? Her eyes widened. I never meant to hurt you, it was a mistake. I was so overwhelmed, work, stress, everything just got out of control. I shook my head slowly. A mistake, that's what you're sticking to. You told me you loved me, that I was everything. But you were sneaking around, hiding your phone. Meeting him in secret, that's not a mistake, that's betrayal. Her lips quivered. Please, I'll do anything, just don't leave me, please. I felt my fists clench under the table. It's too late for that, I've already made my decision. I pulled out my phone and showed her the footage from the hotel. Her face went pale and she looked like she was about to collapse. Do you see this? That's what you've been hiding. That's the real you, not the woman I married. I trusted you and you threw it all away for a quick thrill. She broke down then, tears streaming, voice barely audible. I was stupid, I swear. I thought I was in love with him. I didn't mean for everything to blow up like this. Please, I love you, I cut her off sharply. Love? You think this is love? Love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't betray everything good about a relationship. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed. I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll fix this, I swear, just don't leave me. I looked at her, feeling the cold steel of resolve. You already did enough damage, I'm done trusting words. Actions speak louder and yours have spoken volumes. I don't know if I can ever see you the same way again, but I do know this, our relationship is over. You made that choice, not me. She looked devastated, heartbroken, like she'd been punched in the gut. Please, she whispered, don't do this. I'll change, I swear I'll change. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd given her enough chances. The damage was done. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the keys I'd kept in reserve. I slid them across the table, cold and heavy. Here, your key, take it or leave it, but I want you to remember what you lost forever. She stared at the keys, her face a mix of regret and despair. Her voice was barely a whisper. You're making a mistake. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding like a drum. No, I said, voice steady. This is the only way I know how to deal with it. Good luck, you'll need it. I turned and walked out, leaving her sitting there, crying, broken and alone. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The decision was made. I had finally taken the stand I needed. As I stepped outside into the crisp air, I knew this was the end of what we had. No more lies, no more pain. Just a fresh start, one I was finally ready for. And honestly, it felt damn right. Because sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out what's been poisoning you all along. Would you like me to continue? The days that followed were a blur of cold mornings and quiet nights. I threw myself into work, into anything that would distract me from the hollow ache in my chest. I'd handed over the keys, cut ties, and walked away from what was supposed to be my future. But amidst the chaos, I felt something I didn't expect, peace. A bitter, twisted sort of peace, knowing I had finally taken control back from her lies. Every time I thought about her, I'd get a flash of that night, the look on her face when she realized I'd caught her, the shame that followed. I kept the evidence as a reminder, a trophy of sorts, not to flaunt but to remind me that I was capable of standing up for myself, that I wasn't powerless. It made me stronger. I also knew I had to face the fallout. My friends, my family, they all knew I was hurt, betrayed. Some were sympathetic, others angry on my behalf. But I didn't care about their opinions anymore. This was my battle, my healing. Trust had been broken, yes, but I was slowly piecing myself back together. Not because I wanted her back, God no, but because I owed it to myself to move forward, to learn how to trust again in the right people. One thing was clear, I never wanted to be that vulnerable again. I'd learned that trusting blindly was a recipe for disaster. From now on, I'd pay closer attention to the signs, to the subtle red flags that people sometimes hide behind their smiles. No more naivety, no more illusions. Looking back, I see how everything unfolded, how her lies slowly unraveled, how I refused to be a victim. I made a choice to take back my dignity, my self-respect. And that choice, difficult as it was, set me free. I'm not saying I don't get angry sometimes or that the pain doesn't resurface, but I know now that I'm stronger than the betrayal, that I can rebuild. The most important lesson I learned is this: sometimes love isn't enough, trust is fragile. It can be shattered in an instant, but it can also be rebuilt if you're willing to do the hard work. But if someone consistently proves they're unworthy, then you have to walk away. That's what I did. I chose myself. Today, I'm not perfect. I still have scars, but I'm healing. I've started dating again cautiously with my eyes open. I know now that real love is built on honesty and respect, the kind I thought I had but was betrayed, and I won't settle for less again. So to anyone who's listening and feels lost in betrayal, remember this. Your worth isn't defined by someone else's lies. You're stronger than your pain. Take your time, gather your evidence, and make your move. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness is you. And no one deserves to take that away from you. I handed her the keys that night, and I walked away with a clearer mind, a stronger heart. That's what true strength looks like. Knowing when to fight and when to let go, and I finally did both.